And it starts in 3, 2, 1.
I have
Current Geek!
Current Geek!
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome back to Current Geek. It's the Autopilot edition, a chance for us to watch a pilot episode of a TV show and geek out about it. I'm Scott Johnson, he's Tom Merritt, and this week we talk about Little Doogie Howser. Well, it's just Doogie
Howser.
Oh, boy genius, Doogie Howser, everyone.
Doogie Howser, MD.
Yeah.
Don't forget, he is a medical doctor.
Right away, too, right? Like, I thought the show took a while to get there, but nope, he's already...
No, they started... I think I do recall that they started with him being like... He's a resident, which is, you know, basically your entry-level doctor that's out of med school. Like, he's no longer... he's no longer in school. And I've forgotten... What I had forgotten about is the opening credits that just kind of slowly pan over the newspaper clippings of his life.
Yeah, very weird.
Showing him graduating from high school at 6 years old or whatever. Yeah,
with that old Mike Post song that.
So Mike Post too, right?
It sounds like every Mike Post song ever made.
The melody is very Mike Post. I remember it being richer. It's a very sparse one for Mike Post, actually.
Yeah, it's I mean, there's not much to it. It's very and it's just that kind of synthesizer riff, and there's not much else to it. So, but it's so iconic for this thing. And here's the thing: I didn't watch a lot of Doogie Howser when I was a kid. I knew it was a thing, and I sort of.
When you were a kid, I mean, this is.
When I say
September
a kid,
19th, 1989, it debuted on ABC.
Yeah.
You were in college, weren't you?
I was 18, 19.
I guess high school.
Yeah, well,
college.
I probably just out of high school, just getting going, looking at my 20s like it was bearing down on me. So I don't know who this is made for, though. Like I don't think it was made for kids by any stretch.
I think it was made for families, right?
Sure.
There'd be the older the tweens and teens that would be like, gosh, wouldn't that be great if you were so smart like Doogie Howser?
Yeah, but it's an odd thing because Bochco is known for a very different kind of thing. Hill Street Blues was much more of a kind of gritty cop drama. He would go on to do NYPD Blue and other shows that he would helm that would be way more sort of like, hey, come watch our dark procedural with us pushing the limits of what TV will allow.
Well, maybe we know why he stuck to that and went back to NYPD Blue. I'm not saying this was bad. Don't get me wrong. It was the premiere episode, the pilot episode, Doing It Right, written by Stephen Bochco and David E. Kelley, directed by Rick Wallace, is fine. But this show only went 4 seasons. This was not, the long-running, like 9-season, 7-season success story. It's not a failure either. It's just kind of a middling, like, it was good enough to get renewed a few times, and then it fell off the cliff. To the point where they actually had an end in mind that they weren't able to film because they were canceled before they were ready for that, and they kind of had to hurry write an ending.
Yeah. Did you watch much of this back in the day?
I definitely remember watching this episode, the pilot episode, which is odd because September 1989, I would have been beginning my sophomore year in college. Mm-hmm. So I would have been in the dorms still. I was in the dorms the first 2 years in college. I guess I watched it in the dorm. Maybe.
Interesting.
Like, I remember watching it. In my mind, I sort of remember watching it at home, like in Greenville, at my parents' house. But I wouldn't have been home on September 19th. I would have been at school. So, I don't know. Maybe I watched it with my friend. I used to go to my friend's house over at Parkland College all the time. Like, I don't know where I was, but I definitely remember watching it and definitely remember liking the premise of like, oh, super smart teen kind of trying to upend the world of the adults. I mean, I was... 19 years old, so I still had a lot of kid in me.
Yeah, and there were the premise. What I liked about the premise back when I remember hearing about it was this is going to make it so you could create all these scenarios of an adult having to respect a kid, and that's hard for the adult to do. He's been doing surgery for 30 years. We can get a bit of that in this intro or in this pilot where this seasoned physician says, look, I've been doing heart procedures for longer than this kid's been alive, and he's trying to tell me what to do. It seems like a simple gimmick, but I actually think there's just a lot of legs to that. I think you can go places with it, and explore some things about, hey, he's still a kid in a lot of ways. He's just really, really smart, and as such, a dramatically good doctor. And so that just creates a lot of plot. And I think I'm a little surprised it only went 4 years. I don't remember how the ratings were. How did it do at the time? Do we know any of that?
I mean, it was fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, it didn't have like crazy success, but it was fine. It was abruptly canceled because of low ratings in the end. It just never quite got the ratings it needed. So its first season, it tied with The Simpsons and Night Court.
Wow.
So really strong
Yeah.
for that first season. Second season, it ranked 24th, so it improved its rating. Really strong second season. Third and fourth season, it just kind of fell off a cliff.
Yeah. I in my memory, I saw it maybe once or twice, just sort of on TV. Didn't give it a lot of attention, but you always knew about it. And when you'd see Neil Patrick Harris in more recent times doing cool stuff, you'd go, "Oh man, Doogie Howser sure come a long way." Like
yeah,
that,
right.
Yeah, so everybody knows. It's like for a show that didn't last very long and that is seemingly sort of a blip on the landscape, everybody has a strong memory of him being in it, that was a thing. And then now he's got this kind of other rad career going that didn't get held up by being a child actor.
I mean, every time people talk about child actors, someone should bring up Neil Patrick Harris.
Yeah.
Because he is the opposite. If you're going to say, well, when someone becomes a child actor, it messes them up, you point to Neil Patrick Harris and go, well, it doesn't have to. Because not only was he a child actor, but he stayed an actor. He did, sometimes there's child actors that then go on to do other things. I think, what's his name from Harry Potter? The guy who played Ron Weasley. I can't remember his name.
I can think of his name. Rupert Grint. There you go.
Yeah, he's a successful person because he said, you know what, acting's not my thing. I'm just going to move on from that. And that happens too. But Neil Patrick Harris stayed an entertainer, stayed an actor, was gay. At a time when, especially as a child actor, that must have been not fun.
No.
And yet seems to be perfectly well adjusted and happy and super talented and continuing to do great stuff.
Yeah. No, he's the exception to what the general. I mean, I don't know what the percentages are. It's probably better than we think it is. A lot of child actors.
Well, that's what I wonder, right?
Yeah.
Like, how many child actors do we just not know of that go on to be successful? I mean, I know that I'm not trying to paint a rosy picture of like, oh no, it's always fine. Certainly, it can mess kids up. But
sure.
I think there must be a way, or there must be a type of child, or probably both, where it doesn't have to mess you up.
I agree. I think some of that is you could probably sit down with Ron Howard and ask him some of this.
Right. Yeah. There's another great example.
Yeah, and he could probably give
People forget it's not just Richie Cunningham. He was Opie. He was a kid.
Tiny
Andy
kid.
Griffith's show.
Sure. I mean, I think he was, by the time they ended that thing, he was maybe 12, pushing 13, but he was as young as 6 or 7 when they started. And he turned out all right. He's got cool stuff going on.
Seems to be successful from what I hear around town.
Yeah. Good. I think a good parental sort of back end to your childhood when you're being roped up into that is a strong thing and essential.
Absolutely.
Not getting blinded by the fame and the money and all that. And some of them make it through, some of them don't. But he seemed to do all right. Now, here's the funny thing. There's a scene in this thing that made me wonder how they got away with it, because
there are more than one scene in this that made me wonder. I think I know which one you're talking about.
I mean, the one where the nurse corners him on his birthday and does that whole thing. That would be like out and out lawsuitable harassment. But she does a horrible thing to him. That is not cool.
Well, it's all okay, Scott, because it's a joke.
Yeah,
see?
Yeah, it's not.
That is a joke that would not be played on television. I don't think even on HBO they would play it that way.
Yeah. Even with the roles flipped, where it's like
it would have to be a character who very clearly is evil for it to even be an HBO type of scene, right?
100%.
Not a like, oh no, she's still a good person.
Right.
Oh, sorry.
I can't believe they got away with that. Honestly.
Also, that they got back at them by scaring them by having his friend pretend to be a corpse.
Yeah.
Not equivalent.
No.
Not equivalent at all in my mind.
Not the same. I mean, they thought it was, or they acted like it was, but I think she did was not a prank. And
no, when she was doing that, I was like, really? I don't remember this storyline. Like, this is really, because before it was a joke, I wondered if it was, because as you alluded to earlier, the right from the first episode, they like to deal with the maturity gap, right? He's an incredibly smart and talented doctor and needs to be respected for that. And people need to overlook the appearances to respect that. But at the same time, he's still immature. He's still a 16-year-old, right? And so you also need to not treat him like an adult. And I thought, oh, wow, this is a really interesting way to deal with that dilemma of not treating him like an adult. Like, is she gonna catch herself, or is he gonna resist? And then she realizes, and then, oh no, they're just playing it for laughs. I'm like, that's just awful.
Yeah.
Because it actually didn't bother me that it was an adult coming onto a child. I mean, don't get me wrong. That would bother me in real life.
Right. Of course.
But I assumed that this was going to be a really deep storyline where they're like, this is an adult coming on a child. It's not right. How are they going to deal with the fact that somehow she sees him as no? It was not complex and nuanced at all like that. It was just for laughs.
No, I'm glad you brought that up. I'm glad you brought it up because I thought that was going to be the central point of the episode. I thought everything was going to surround around that, and it was going to have to be
because he was going to the dance with the girl, and so now he's like, wait, but adult women are interested in me. As that scene unfolds, though, and she starts getting closer and closer to him, and it's less about like, well, I have to, admit my feelings, and she starts to touch him. I'm like, okay, no, this is not okay.
Yeah, no, she is in contact with him. His pants drop because she undoes him.
Right. In front of the entire observational lounge.
You would never do this. You would never do this. I don't know. And even here's the thing: they try to really pound it into you that it was good-hearted and they didn't mean anything by it. I don't buy that. If anyone did that,
that's
89 or not, like forget.
That's every hazing ritual that's ever been brought to light and disavowed and deemed unacceptable. Is everyone involved said, oh, but it wasn't meant bad when we forced these pledges to drink 1,000 gallons of beer.
Right.
It was just for kicks. It was all lighthearted.
Yeah, and it turns out it's at least today. This would have been the central plot point. This would have been a whole story about how do I balance my and by the way, it would have been
should I report them?
Yeah, and it would have been a deftly well made.
How do I bring them up on charges?
In the right hands, it could have been a really good arc because that's a really interesting reversal. It's usually the other way we think about it. It kind of challenges our stereotypes. Like there's places to take this, and they don't take it there. They just go, you got pantsed.
You're right. And actually, the HBO version of this would have dealt with the reality of that situation, right? And they would have handled it a little differently, I think. But you could have a really deep plot line around that. And I'm not even blaming them for not doing the deep plot line. But wow, just bringing that in. Well, and also, as I texted you when I was watching this is a racy episode. Like this is targeted towards families, and it's a teen hero, and they I just don't know if broadcast TV would do it the way they did it, where his friend comes in and says, yeah, I'm going to do the sex tonight, or however he phrased it. Like, whoa, okay, Max Casella, we're just going to go right there. Great. I see. No subtlety.
Yeah, they were, it was like Porky's during that scene. Yeah, they went straight to it.
It was, I mean, I'm not being a prude when I say this. I'm saying this is broadcast primetime television, and they're not handling it with a wink and a nod. He just comes right out and says, you know what I'm doing tonight? The sex.
Yeah. Yeah, and plenty of innuendo and other stuff, and it just surprised me because my memory of Doogie Howser didn't have any of that in there.
No.
Yeah.
And most of we're focusing on these two elements. Most of the episode is not like that.
Right.
I think that's why they stuck out so much.
Yeah, I think that's, and I don't even know if the rest of the series even dealt with it that much. But the core concepts here are, hey, I'm 16, I'm living in an adult world where I'm smarter than most of the people in this room, if not all of them. But at night, it turns out I still kind of have the same anxieties, the same issues, the same whatevers as a kid who's 16. He really wants to kiss his girlfriend. He really wants to go to the prom.
I'm not sure about how his strategy would have played out in reality. I was half expecting her to slap him when he nibbled her ear.
Yeah, that was just, what are you doing there, dude?
Nibbling the ear was the third one where I'm like, wow, weird choice to show high schoolers. Okay, fine.
Yeah, and just him like planning to lick her ear. And I get the joke of like, oh, he's going to explain it in really scientific terms,
Right.
and that's funny, haha. But then
Right in front of everyone.
and then he does it, and then you're like, ugh, dude. If I were her, knee in the crotch, hand to the face, get out of there. Like,
but aside from that,
Yeah.
I thought it was really sweet to show him wanting to do a dance because I mean he's not in school. We
No.
saw that in the newspaper clippings, right?
Right.
But he's just getting to go to these events, I guess somehow. They don't really explain that. But you know, having a high school sweetheart like that was a great contrary point to his daily life where he's, you know, trying to gain respect and be mature, to show that. And this was a great way to show that he is a 16-year-old, even if he's super smart. And I loved that the main thrust was that he would get a page that this child that he was promising would live was in trouble, and he had a dispute over what treatment should be had. And then when we show up, I loved that they didn't have the child die under the operation, which would have set up "I told you so" for Doogie, right? Like you chose the wrong procedure and now he's dead. Instead, he died before they even could operate.
Right.
And then suddenly it's he and the doctor he had the argument with bonding and being like, you know, gosh, we both wanted what was best for this kid, and doesn't this suck? And I was like, what a great choice. What a great way to play that that typical medical drama in a way that is going to hit a lot more in a setup like Doogie Howser.
I agree. The only part I didn't like about that is it got to the hospital and they do this trope where if someone finds out the news and their first thing to do is just go punch a locker or punch a wall.
Oh yeah, no, that was
like,
a little cheesy.
It's like, come on, guys, you don't need to. I would have found it more effective had he sort of sat down and looked very, you know, grief-stricken, and this is one of those moments of like, man, am I ready to be tested this way when I have this kind of loss professionally, and I'm only 16? Like, I can deal with the medical part of it, but can I deal with the emotional part of it, which is a central crux of the whole thing, him talking to his dad later. Like, that's all good stuff. But I think they try too often, or maybe in this pilot they try a little too often to make him react like an adult in those adult situations, and I think it would behoove them to make him a little more of a 16-year-old in those situations.
Well, punching a wall is kind of a 16-year-old can't handle my emotions response, which is why it's a trope, because showing, you know, a reserved, mature doctor punching the wall because he's just so mad kind of is a great point. When you have a 16-year-old punch the wall, it just plays as like, oh, okay. Yeah. It's you're doing the old trope with the like it doesn't have, excuse the pun, it doesn't have the punch that it should. So I think you're right. I think making a different choice there to show his immaturity and frustration, and in parallel with the other doctor's despair, you know, and sort of learning that. I actually really did like that then they had the dad come and talk to him, you know, in bedside and have the dichotomy of the professional commiseration at the hospital and then the father-son commiseration. That worked.
Yeah, I think so too. I think it also I was happy about that because earlier it's all conflict. It's like, Dad, can I have the keys? That old tale.
Yeah.
And he's like, no, you can't have the keys. Sorry, son. You're just gonna have to deal
that was
with
going
it.
to start to grate if it's just constantly, you know. Anybody like yourself who's raised a teenager knows that it grates in real life. You don't need to see it on a TV show.
And also, I guess we get enough of that everywhere. It'd be cool if for once the show would explore how this is difficult, even when you have that support, but also why that support matters. You know, that's compelling.
And if he's that smart,
Yeah.
would he act that typically recalcitrant?
Right.
I'm not saying he would not be rebellious, but wouldn't he have a clever way of doing it, or at least what he thought was a clever way of doing it?
But it's a good, interesting point. I'm glad you brought that up because I could tell they were trying to find that line of when should he be impotent and mad and, you know, just teenager mad, or when should he be like talking to that guy who said he's going to sue him because they have a 16-year-old working on his stitches, and then he just very calmly, well, sir, this is how it works, and you're all done now, and by the way, you have 3 years is the statute of limitations on when you can sue for malpractice, so just keep that in mind. Like, he's just very controlled.
You're right. That's a great example of what you would think he would do.
Right. I think they should have leaned into that a little bit more. And they probably do in the series. You know, that's the other funny thing about autopilot. Every time we get a pilot, we we kind of, with a few exceptions, we kind of realized that, oh, well, they didn't really know yet where this was going to go or how this is going to evolve. And I would say that's most pilots. There's a couple where you're like, Breaking Bad, it's pretty much consistent from day one till day end, maybe even to this Friday, tomorrow when that movie comes out. They just always knew exactly what they were going to do, how these characters are going to behave, and it just was consistent from day one. But I don't think most shows 100% know yet. That they'll go where the characters need them to go over time, and you only notice it when you go back and watch the first one. Like that Friends episode was kind of weird.
Yeah. Well, because especially back then when you're doing these kind of procedurals, you don't really meet the characters. You haven't done a book on them. You haven't written an entire screenplay and gone back and combed over the consistency. You're trying to just create characters and put them in a world, and they start to kind of learn and grow on their own.
Right.
With something like Breaking Bad, they broke those characters before they put them in the scripts. They knew what, they did a lot of work that you just didn't do. And I don't think you always do it even still for certain kinds of shows. Certainly not comedies. Not that Doogie Howser's a comedy, but it's a lighter version of a medical procedure.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of what we have now that would be like this. Do we have anything like Doogie Howser now?
Well, that's a great question, because we have a lot of Chicago Fire and all of that, but there's nothing that's a twist, is there?
No, I'm trying to think when the last time that would have been.
There's kind of nothing like Doogie Howser ever.
Yeah, it's a pretty unique thing, both in medical drama, but also just this. The conceit is unique. I don't think anybody else has really tried that before. The only thing I can think is close to it is like maybe the conceit on Grey's Anatomy was and is that the interns, not the interns, what are they called? I guess they're interns when they start, whatever they are. Your first years. Yeah. It's all about that kind of, you're so green, you don't know what you're doing yet. There's a lot of maturity that has to happen. Like, I guess they kind of play with some of those ideas, but that's delivered pretty straight.
That's just normal doctor stuff.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
yeah. I mean, it's overly dramatic, but sure.
There used to be more like that in comedy in television with Francis the Talking Mule or
Alf.
the Flying Nun, stuff like that, where they're like, it's a drama, but with a twist. But it was always a comedy. Doogie Howser was the first one where it's not really a comedy. It's certainly lighter than a typical medical drama, but it's not light. I mean, freaking kid died in the pilot. Yeah. Like that's not ha-ha light stuff.
Not at all. Maybe there just isn't one anymore. Maybe it was a blip, because there's plenty of other examples of other styles of things. Like there's certainly shows that surround a certain kind of, even comedies that surround a certain kind of gimmick. Like How I Met Your Mother is a very gimmicky idea, because you have the entire series to wait to find out how you met your mother. So there's an example. Yeah. I mean, it's not quite as obvious, or it's not like Alf where there's a freaking alien.
Good Place.
Yeah,
maybe.
Yeah. Good Place is another good one.
Yeah.
Examples like that can exist today, but I think they're just way more nuanced than they used to be. I mean, when Alf was on, I keep using Alf as my example, but to me, it's a good example. When Alf was on, it was like, oh, haha, it's this show's really about, it's an alien who's here on Earth and he doesn't like cats, or he loves cats, can't remember which. But at the end of the day, it's about family. And I feel like we're just over that, like kind of like we're over 3-camera laugh track comedies, although I guess a few of those exist still. But
I wonder when that's going to come back.
Yeah, I feel like they're trying.
I wonder if that will come back. I guess I should say.
Big Bang Theory may have just ended, but that was an example of one that lived
on. It was the last of the great 3-camera laugh track comedies.
I guess so. What's that Netflix one with it's like The Ranch, I think it's called.
Oh yeah, there's actually a few like that. You're right. But none of them are big.
No, not like they used to be.
Big Bang Theory.
Yeah, not like the Seinfeld
Modern
days.
Family is kind of the last great broadcast TV comedy. Superstore is still pretty popular.
Yeah, but those play out like The Office or like Arrested Development.
Superstore is more like The Office, whereas Modern Family, I guess it is kind of a faux documentary style, even if it's not pretending to be.
Yeah, a little bit. At least the interview stuff, but also it's got an Arrested Development vibe to it. I feel like Arrested Development deserves some crazy credit for some real altering of the comedy landscape. And then I've been watching lately, I've been watching Fleabag, which is as good as everyone says it is.
Oh my god, Fleabag is that just ticks the comedy genre and like cracks it over your knee and then reassembles it in front of you to laugh.
Yeah, and it takes you places where you normally in comedies I get mad. If you try to give me some drama in my comedy, I get mad. That show knows how to do it and not make me mad. It feels right.
Because every time they get serious, there's a joke inside.
Yeah.
It's like a burrito of drama with a filling of joke.
It's an odd thing. But also I think Barry is this new kind of comedy where they figure out a way to make a dark hitman thing funny. Like it's just an odd
Barry
thing.
might be close to Doogie Howser in that sense of this is not a funny premise.
Right.
But there's some lighthearted moments. Except Barry, I think, avowedly is trying to be a comedy when it's being funny. Whereas Doogie Howser was never trying to be a comedy. It was just trying to have you lighten up like, hey, he is just a 16-year-old and he'll have 16-year-old kind of stuff. And then that's when the comedy comes in, is when what's his face? Vinny, his Max Casella character, comes in. That's where you get any kind of laughs you're going to have.
What's that kid doing now, I wonder? Let's see.
Max Casella?
Yeah.
Oh, gosh, he's been in a ton of stuff.
I feel like I haven't seen him.
He is most well known for being in, Marvelous Ms. Maisel most recently.
Oh, right. Okay.
He was in Jackie. I think he was in Ray Donovan, The Detour.
Inside Llewyn Davis. I remember him in that. He was great in that.
Final Boardwalk Empire.
All right, I take all of that back. I forgot. He does real good. He just doesn't look anything like he used to.
He's all over the place.
Yeah, he doesn't look like the weird kid he used to be.
No, none of us do.
No.
Even I always want to call him Bret Easton Ellis for some reason. I apologize, Neil Patrick Harris. I don't know why. It's just a 3-name thing, I guess. Neil Patrick Harris doesn't even look like that.
No, not at all. I mean, would you be offended if I asked you to play that tiny little clip you always play of yourself when you were like 16 doing radio?
Not in the least.
All right, play that.
Let me dig it up for you. Yeah, this is me at 16, actually.
Yep.
My first time on the radio. Let's see if I make it loud enough here. Here you go. Oh, why don't you want to play? All right.
Thank you. This is only my first day, and listen to that applause. All right. Tom Merritt here with you on WGEL, the best country in the country. All right. Right now, I see we've got Marie Osmond and Alabama due up this hour, but first, very, very important message. Thank you.
Oh, my gosh. What a combo, too. Marie Osmond and Alabama.
Yeah, it was a country station. You know, Marie had a top 10 hit at the time.
That's great. So it's funny because I can hear there is a little Tom Merritt in there, but it's such an ancient echo.
Yeah, well, and my natural accent. It's quite apparent.
Wow. All right. That was great. I'm glad we had an excuse to do that. But one thing I didn't want to miss too much here is this seemed like not a failure, but like a bump in the road for Stephen Bochco and David E. Kelley, who those guys had wildly successful careers.
A diversion for them, right?
Yes. Yeah. I think that's a fair way to put it, because Bochco would do this as, I don't know, it was like a little fun project for him or what it was, but he would go on to being one of the most Emmy decorated, dudes in TV.
He wins, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 Emmys for Hill Street Blues, 1 for NYPD Blue, and 3 for LA Law.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just passed away last year. Not so pretty recent, but he had a lot of really good stuff. And David E. Kelley, famous for all sorts of things. In particular, he was known for LA Law. Also worked a lot with him, obviously. Chicago Hope, The Practice, Ally McBeal, Boston Public, Boston Legal.
Doesn't appear that he won any Emmys for Doogie Howser, though Doogie Howser did win some Emmys.
Yeah, and he's got, let's see,
or at least he got nominated. Won Outstanding Sound Mixing.
He is also the executive producer of a show I've been meaning to see and haven't, because I love the books, but Stephen King's series, his detective series called Mr. Mercedes. That is his current project and is still running it. Creator, writer, executive producer, and it just got renewed for a third season. But everything from Big Little Lies to Goliath.
He's not running it anymore, I guess.
I thought he was. Well, no.
Who, Bochco?
No. David E. Kelley.
You switched on to David E. Kelley.
Yeah. He's still with us. He's still around.
Yeah.
But like Goliath, one of my favorite shows on Amazon Prime, at least that first season, he co-created that. So he's just kept going and going. And it feels like a dude that got his feet wet in that old 80s television drama revolution of the L.A. Law, Doogie Howser, Picket Fences, Chicago Hope time, and then has just carried that stuff forward and is still just kicking it. It's just good to see. It's fun to watch that guy do that. Big Little Lies is his. I didn't know that.
I mean, that's a monster.
Yeah,
like everybody loves that. I haven't watched it. Eileen watched it and said it was amazing.
I had no idea that was.
You don't get Meryl Streep to be on your TV show unless you got something special.
No, she doesn't have time for you, right?
Yeah, not if she doesn't want to have time for you. Definitely not.
She's got other stuff to do. She doesn't need to be on your show, but yet there it is. So anyway, that guy's great. We love that dude. Isn't he with Michelle? I think he's married to Michelle Pfeiffer. Yes, that is correct. They got married in '93. They still married, and they have 2 kids. Nice work.
Good
there.
for them.
Yeah, good for them. You married Catwoman, or one
Next
of them.
time I see them at the market, I'll say you said hello.
Have you seen them there? You don't see
No,
them.
but I for some reason, as soon as you said that he's married to Michelle Pfeiffer with 2 kids, I'm like, I bet they live in Sherman Oaks.
Oh, that's hilarious.
I bet, when I'm around town.
Yeah, you'll run into them.
Yeah. No reason for saying that. I have no idea where they live.
All right. Do you think at this stage of the Doogie Howser experience, is this a show you would be like, you know what, I'm going to put that on in the background and watch, keep watching the way you did with Cheers? Or are you like, I'm good. I'm
totally good.
Yeah, I think I'm good too. I don't need to keep going.
I'm still going with Cheers.
Yeah, no, Cheers just goes and goes and is great. You know what's bumming me out is my wife is on her, I don't know, Friends kick, and she's watching Friends again. And I kind of had it with Friends. I'm done.
Really?
Yeah, I'm kind of done. I feel like I've seen too much of it. We did our autopilot. That was great, but it's just on all the time because her and Carter love it, so it's always on. And I think I'm a little spent on it. So I wish they'd go your route and just let's restart Cheers, everybody. Let's get back into the, back to Boston and get out of New York for a while. That'd be kind of nice. Do you think
Michelle Pfeiffer put her San Francisco area mansion on sale in April 2018? So they used to have a house there.
Wow. Did you bid on it and just tried to nail that down for yourself?
I just didn't quite have the 29.5 million.
Oh my gosh.
So,
wow.
Yeah.
That's a lot of money.
It looks like Pacific Palisades maybe where, because a Variety and everybody, they do these real estate beats for when celebrities buy property.
You ever feel like you could have been one of these dudes that wrote TV and were successful at it? You just weren't, either you weren't, introduced to it or weren't in the right circles or whatever.
Sometimes I wonder. I've got ideas, but then I think, well, so does everybody. So I don't know. I like writing novels better because I'm unlimited by practicalities.
Right.
Because one of the things you have to do when you're writing TV and movies, as I understand it from the people who I've talked to who really know that stuff, is you do have to keep in mind what's possible, right? And not even just what's possible, but what's probable for the budget for which you are writing.
Right.
And that's not a problem. That's a wonderful creative constraint. But hey, in novels, you don't have to worry about that at all, unless you want to get your novel picked up for film rights, which everybody does.
Right, but you still have the. That's you know what you just brought up a big question about compromise for writers. I wonder how many feel that while they're doing it.
I'm sure. It kind of depends on the publisher and the agent, but I know for a fact actually that there have been conversations between editors and writers where editors it's not the stereotype of they're pushing the writer around against his creative vision, but just sort of saying hey, if we made this change, is that okay? Because if we do, that makes it more acceptable. And there's also things where they say look, we know this would never go in a film world, but since you have the plot written this way, we could drop that out in a film script and it would still, that kind of thinking definitely happens.
Yeah, I could see that, I guess. I've felt that with art stuff before. When you're doing your own thing, who cares? Sky's the limit.
Yeah.
But the minute you're doing a project where, I don't know, somebody else's pacing matters or somebody else's idea of what, composition needs to be, you have to bend a little. So I guess that's probably the same I just wonder how many people resent it or resent the idea that it's in their head reminding them to do it while they're trying to be creative, you know?
I think they're more resentful that they do it and then they, the option doesn't get turned into a movie or TV show. And they're like, well, shoot, why'd I do that?
Oh, yeah. I went and spent all that time doing that. And now they didn't pick it up. Yeah,
and it never got picked up.
Do you think Doogie Howser has any... Okay, there's a trick answer to this from my side, but do you think Doogie Howser has any chance of revival?
Yeah, I don't think so. For two reasons. One, Neil Patrick Harris has been kind of genius in not denying his past. Mm-hmm. Again, the stereotype child actor is like, yeah, I'm not Doogie. I'm not that person anymore.
Right.
Neil Patrick Harris plays with it. He has fun with it. There's a whole thing in the Wikipedia article about all the times that Neil Patrick Harris has shown up as a guest and made references to being Doogie Howser, including an episode of How I Met Your Mother.
Right.
So I think that helps keep it his in a weird way.
Yeah.
But also just the fact that Doogie Howser became a term you use even if you've never seen the show.
Right.
And it's not a beloved term necessarily. Like, oh, look, it's Doogie Howser for any young, brilliant situation. I don't know that you could ever remake Doogie Howser. Could you do the Doogie Howser concept? Possibly. Like young genius medical doctor, and just be like, yeah, we're not calling it Doogie Howser, but it's essentially Doogie Howser. Yeah, I think you might be able to do that.
I think you could animate it. That's going to be my answer.
You could animate Doogie Howser,
yeah.
or you could animate a version.
You could animate a version of it. I think. Okay. I think you could make a Doogie Howser series that would be okay. I mean, I'm not sure I'd invest in it, but I think you could pull it off in animation. For some reason, I have that in my head that would work, and I don't know why.
Interesting.
I don't know why I feel
I'm not seeing it myself, but that doesn't mean it wouldn't.
If you had to figure out a way to force this round peg into a modern, square hole, which I don't think is
what if you
easy.
did Doogie Howser on square pegs?
Okay, wait. Now we're on to something. Call Call David E. Kelly. Get him out of his mansion. Let's talk.
We got a brilliant pitch for you. It's Doogie Howser meets square pegs, called Doogie Howser meets square pegs.
Oh my gosh, Alf in a recurring role on
with
Doogie
Alf,
Howser, square pegs.
On Alf's home planet.
Yep. See what I mean about how we could have done this and we just missed our boat?
You're right. You're so right.
It's a real bummer.
It's not too late.
Yeah, it's a real bummer. Anyway,
we know a successful TV writer.
Yeah, we do. That's true. We
know can get us into the guild or whatever.
Yeah, we know at least a couple of movie script writers.
Is that the way it works? You get into a guild.
You get into the guild. You do 3 or 4 quests for the guild master, and then the guild master says you're.
Yeah. It's got to work that way.
Yeah, it works like video games, as far as I know. Mm-hmm. Any other thoughts, feelings, anything about Doogie Howser? Do you want to mention before we kick it?
No, it was a pleasant enough watch. I was glad it was a half hour.
Yeah, I thought it was an hour. I didn't know it was so short.
And it was interesting. It was a nice little trip down memory lane for me.
I feel like I gained even more appreciation for Neil Patrick Harris because I know more about his career now, and I also think he's kind of the Patrick Stewart of this scenario. By that I mean he didn't think of Star Trek as a hindrance or as a something around his neck that he can never escape.
Right.
He instead embraced it as he continued to grow out of it. And I think that's what he did. I remember seeing that Harold and Kumar Go to White Castle movie, which is not a great movie, but Neil Patrick Harris as Neil Patrick Harris showing up in that thing and just stealing the movie, really stole it. I walked away from that going, oh, we're not done with him. Like he's not some washed up dude that you only remember as a kid. Like there's way more to hear from that guy. And I think that was a great moment. So, yeah, I just have a big bunch of respect for him.
Yeah, huge respect for Neil Patrick Harris. That's a great point.
Yeah, and a couple actors in here I really like. I like the guy who plays the dad. I like, a few people like that. The girl that does that horrible thing to him is also quite good. She's good in other things. I forgot her name, the actress. But there's some people in here that are, okay to watch. Will I watch it? Probably not. Will Tom? No. But should you at home at least catch the pilot on Hulu.com? Yes. So that way you can listen to the show and be more informed.
There you go.
Yep.
Perfect.
Don't forget to stick around to the end of the show because Legal Geek is here to cover how the name and likenesses law passed by California signals a sea change in how and whether college athletes can be paid during their eligibility, just in time for the Heart of
Justin
Football.
Robert Young, very excited about this change.
Yeah, he got real stoked about that. So that's a thing you're going to want to check out right after we're done talking here. And a reminder that we do this once a month for Autopilot. Next month, The Sopranos. It's a singing group. We follow them through their work as singers. No.
Oh, is that what that's about? See, I've never seen it. And I'm not joking, audience. I have never seen The Sopranos.
Tom has not seen The Sopranos, and that is a shame because The Sopranos is one of the greatest television shows, crime-based family TV shows ever made, if there's such a thing.
I watched The Altos.
Yeah.
Never watched this.
I only watched the baritones, and it was it's pretty low. If you know what I mean.
Hey, I see what you did there.
Yeah. So anyway, we're gonna do that, and I'm excited because that might spark a rewatch of that series, which I've now seen twice. I wouldn't.
Or a
mind seeing
watch of that series in my case.
And I think you should. I really actually think you should go through that.
Yeah,
whole thing.
I should. This is, and it's part of the reason I'm glad we're picking this because it could be the thing that finally makes me do it.
It's Goodfellas, the movie, or the TV show,
and I've seen all of those.
Right, and if you've seen
Goodfellas, Reservoir Dogs, Godfather. All of it.
It's all those things in a television format, and James Gandolfini is one of the greatest. He plays one of the greatest characters ever. It's so good. So we're going to do that next month. The Sopranos, everybody. Doogie Howser to Sopranos. There is a line.
Yeah.
Next week it'll we will have a discussion episode next week, so tune in for that. That'll always be fun. In the meantime, please consider supporting us over at patreon.com/currentgeek. If you do that, it means we can keep on the air. It's the way we pay for things here. So if you like us, and many of you do, thank you for that. For those who haven't checked it out, do. It's at patreon.com/currentgeek. I just submitted this month's artwork, and it is, let's see, what did I do? Maybe in that weird wacky clown I did for Halloween. I can't remember now. But it's a unique art you're only going to get here by going to support us at patreon.com/currentgeek. Tom Merritt, anything else you want to mention before we get out of here?
FreeTomNewsletter.com is the place to go if you want to have a chat with me. I will email you a little note about what I've been up to, just kind of a weekly update, includes links to all the shows that I've done every week, and then you can respond to it. And if you have any thoughts of your own, so go sign up, FreeTomNewsletter.com.
Nice. If you're looking for good live streaming content, might I point people to our Twitch channel, which is over at twitch.tv/frogpants. You can catch the morning stream there. You can catch other shows being recorded live and gameplay and all kinds of stuff. It's hopping over there at the Frog Pants Twitch channel. For everything else, frogpants.com. That's going to do it for us. Go to currentgeek.com for us. Everything's there that you need. That's going to do it for us. For me, for Tom, for all of you, and Doogie Howser also. We'll see you next time.